It is time to continue our season reviews. Today, we are talking all about Gus Nyquist, not dead, just in Minnesota. We're going to talk about the season he had before he got injured and the season he's having now, or the postseason he's having now with the Minnesota Wild.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you the news, the stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube. Like, subscribe. We finally hit the next milestone, which is super exciting. So we are on our way to the next 100 subscribers, which is very exciting. So go ahead, like, subscribe. If you hit the little bell button down below, then you get notified when new episodes go live. I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And let's get into it, because today we're talking about Gus Nyquist, who I honestly forgot a little bit that he was on the team this season. This season has been really, really long, is the thing. He had a really good season for the Blue Jackets last year. And this season, he was fine. He had 22 points in 48 games for the Blue Jackets before his season was ended by injury. 10 goals, 12 assists. He was one of those guys that is kind of just the and I've said this a lot about him, he's the prototypical veteran player. I really loved him as a free agent pickup that they did back in 2019. I thought he added depth to the team. I think a lot of people expect free agent signings to be this like star it factor, especially when you're paying, I think, 4 or 5 million for the Gus Nyquist. And he wasn't that, but he came in, he was a veteran on the team, he stabilized the core a little bit, he provided depth. He's one of those players that can play on the top line and be effective, and he can play in the bottom six and be effective. And I think they're seeing that as well in Minnesota. He has 5 points so far in the playoffs for the Wild. We'll talk about his playoff performance in a second. His Blue Jackets career was a good one. He was a guy that I was kind of the three players that got moved, Gavrikov, Korpisalo, and Nyquist. Nyquist was the one that I was hoping might stick around to get re-signed. I think maybe take a little bit of a pay cut. His cap hit was, I'm going to have to look this up because I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. They are retaining. He made 5.5 million. So a lot. I don't know that I'll be comfortable with him signing that amount of money again, but maybe, somewhere in the region of 3.5 million for the next 3 years. Like, he's only 33, so he's probably got maybe 3 to 4 years left in him. I'll be perfectly happy with that. I would take Gus Nyquist on this team any day of the week. It's tough to kind of talk about what I want to see from Gus Nyquist next season, because, he's not going to be here next season. I mean, he might, but that seems unlikely. So we were gonna talk about that, but we're not. Instead, in the next segment, what we are going to talk about is Gus Nyquist's playoffs, because I talked about him a little bit this morning, but I want to kind of keep talking about that. I did record this morning's episode before all of the playoff games happened yesterday, so some of my numbers might be a little bit out of sync. But last time I checked, I'm just going to pull up the Wild playoff stats. He is 4th on the team. I don't know why. Oh, excuse me. I'm looking at the wrong numbers. Yeah, he's currently tied for 2nd on the team in scoring. Excuse me. He's got 4 points in 4 games. 4 of those are assists. He didn't record a point in last night's game. But the only players that have more points than him are Matt Zuccarello and Ryan Harmon. So, he's doing well. He's taking full advantage. And he's doing it. He's getting 17 minutes of ice time a game. So I don't know what more you can ask from Gus Nyquist. In a minute, we're going to look a little bit deeper at Gus Nyquist's numbers this season with the Blue Jackets. That's what's coming up in the second segment. But first, I've got to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Gametime. Because I don't know about you, but I am terrible at planning things. I always get to it gets to the morning, I'll wake up, I'm like, what am I going to do today? And especially if I'm in San Jose, which I spend, part of the year there, I was like, hey, are the Sharks playing? Are the Barracuda playing? Is there something to do? And because the Sharks are bad, tickets are super cheap. And so usually what I'll do is I'll go and I'll look last minute, try and find a bit like, hey, let's go to a game tonight. And Gametime is perfect for that. They've got flash deals. You don't have to plan months in advance. They've got deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. They've got football, basketball, baseball, hockey, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And you can get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. It takes 2 taps to buy a ticket, and you're set. And those tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, back to Gus Nyquist, who has, like I said, he's been good for this Blue Jackets team for a fair amount of the time. If I just pull up his season numbers, like I said, and the team was bad this year as well, so I feel like it's tough to look at Gus Nyquist is as a player this season because basically everyone had a down season. So I'm looking at his numbers. I'm like, yeah, okay, that seems fine. That seems okay considering no one in this team knew how to score a goal. Getting 10 goals out of Gus Nyquist this season before he 10 goals in 48 games before he got injured is I'm pretty happy with that. In terms of possession numbers, he was 46.94%, which, not going to lie, looking at this list, I'm okay with that. There are 41 names on this list, so we'll go ahead and take that as pretty darn good. The only players that played more than him and are above him were Bemstrom, Johnson, Jenner, Marchenko, Gaudreau, and Laine. Laine actually finished. We'll talk about this in Laine's season review, but he finished the season with the highest Corsi for percentage for this team, which is very funny considering what everyone says. But Gus Nyquist was good for this team. Wasn't great. He was good. And I feel like a player like Gus Nyquist, you don't need them to be good. You just need them to be okay. And he was okay for this team. Like I said, 22 points on the season. Shooting percentage, maybe a little high at 10.3. I feel like shooting percentage usually hovers around about 12 to 14. So shooting percentage would be low. Excuse me, I got my numbers backwards there. But he was good for this team. He had more takeaways than giveaways. Didn't throw a huge amount of hits. He blocked shots when he needed to. Apparently, he took some face-offs. He took about 30-ish face-offs, lost 18 of them. But I mean, I'm not looking at Gus Nyquist to play center in this league anyway. He was fine. And so yeah, trading him a shame, but it makes sense. I think it was. Honestly, I was amazed that they traded him when he was done for the season. I was like, oh, okay, so there he's just going to walk for nothing as a UFA, which is not what happened. And I guess he came back just in time for the playoffs. He played, I think, three regular season games for the Wilds this season. Had 5 points in those 3 games, so clearly didn't take a ton of time to get up to speed. And like I said, he's been doing really well for them in the playoffs. He's been a really good, just a depth add for this team, I think. He's doing exactly what it says on the tin. He is that veteran that's giving them depth, that's giving them something to give minutes to, so they don't have to play their top guys 25 minutes a season. I feel like the trade feels like, now that we've seen that, the trade feels a little lopsided. They traded him for a 5th round pick. Okay, so that's a little bit higher than I thought. I thought they got a 7th round pick for him. 5th round pick, not the worst, but I think looking at how he's been for the Wild in this playoffs, like, I would have loved to see if they could have, with the benefit of hindsight, I would have loved to have seen a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for Gus Nyquist, especially since the Blue Jackets are retaining salary. Retaining salary doesn't super matter now because the season is over, and so he's a UFA. The Blue Jackets are going into next season with a fair amount of salary cap room. Got to re-sign some guys, but I'm sure it will be fine. That's kind of it. I should do the Twitter poll response, because I think this might be a time where they agree. The Twitter poll agrees with me. Yes. So 11% of people gave him an A, 55% of people gave him a B, and 33% of people gave him a C. No one gave him a D or an F, which makes sense. Yeah, Gus Nyquist is like that prototypical B grade player. He's not gonna be a game changer. And if you look at, like, even in his heyday in Detroit, where he was 28, 27 goal seasons, and he'd won deadline pickup for San Jose. Like, he was never a superstar player. Like, his career high is 54 points that he had in 2014-15, and then he had 53 points last season when he was one of 2 players to play all 82 games for Blue Jackets. So, he's never been that superstar player, but he is a solid team player. He's a glue guy. And that's why I've always liked Gus Nyquist, is that he's never been a main character player, but he shows up, he plays on the top line, he plays on the power play. I don't know if he plays on the penalty kill. Let me see if I can try and find his ice time. Penalty kill. I feel like he was a really good penalty killer for the Blue Jackets. In 2021, he had 4 shorthanded goals. And this season he had 2 shorthanded goals. So over the last 2 seasons for the Blue Jackets, he's had 6 shorthanded goals, which is pretty darn good. I can't find the time. Oh, he killed almost 85 minutes worth of penalties this season. So, he plays on the penalty kill, he plays on the power play, he plays on the top line, he plays in the bottom 6. Like, he'll play wherever you want him to. He'll get points. Like I said, he's getting 17 minutes of ice time on average over with the Wild, and he's a point per game. So it's pretty impressive, is what he's doing. And he's got a style, I feel like, that doesn't probably won't decline as much with age, because he's not necessarily super fast. He's just a really smart player, in the same way that John Tavares is starting to slow down now, and he's never the fastest guy anyway, but his game doesn't rely on speed And so he's probably going to age pretty well. And we're kind of seeing that this season. John Tavares had a really good season with Toronto. And Gus Nyquist is kind of the same player, I feel like, in that his game doesn't rely on his speed. And so even when he does start to slow down, it will probably be fine. This is not to say that Gus Nyquist is a slow skater, because this season and last season, I feel like I tweeted it a bunch of times, I was surprised by the wheels he had on him. And, that's, I think, why he scored so many shorthanded goals. He has wheels. He's a really good skater. But the game he plays is not based on speed. He's not the kind of player that is going to score a bunch of breakaway goals based on his speed. He is a guy that probably will do just fine, even if he starts to lose a step or two. I miss Gus Nyquist. Like I said, I really hope the Blue Jackets re-sign him next season. I think that would be that'd be a good pickup for them. But I understand probably he's not. I don't know where he's going to go, but he might resign with the Wild if they do well with him this season. It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. I don't think it's going to be with Columbus, but I would not be angry if it was. And that's kind of the Gus Nyquist story. Real good Blue Jacket for a minute there. And that's all I've got for today. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing another couple episodes. First episode, we're going to be talking about the CHL playoffs. The season, the series are starting to finish up there. So we'll be going into the third round. So we'll check in on our Blue Jacket prospects, see how they're doing. And then tomorrow night, we're going to be doing a duo season review. We're going to be talking about Lane Peterson and Justin Danforth, both of whom played 11 games for the Blue Jackets this season. So instead of giving them their own episode, I've kind of lumped those two guys together because I feel like we spent half the episode talking about one, we spent half the episode talking about the other. Anyway, so that's tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being an everydayer. If you're new here, then you could be an everydayer. That's fine. I super appreciate however many times a week you manage to tune in. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.